Hello everybody, this is Tech Hut. In this video, what I'm going to be doing is a installation tutorial for this guy right here, for the processor itself and the fan that it comes with. Now the fan it comes with is actually really nice. This is probably the best fan that comes stock with a CPU that you can get on the market right now. You could actually see it running right there. It's RGB, so it has all kinds of color control. Now stay tuned for the end of the video. I'm going to be doing a little bit of testing to see the performance of the fan in terms of keeping it cool. So, jumping right into it. And this right here is the Ryzen 3700X that we will be installing into this motherboard. The motherboard that we will be using for this build is the Asus Prime X5700P. So first what you're going to want to do is locate where your CPU socket is on the board. And you'll see a thin lever here that's held down by a little piece of plastic. That's the retention arm. You're just going to want to pull that up and put it in the vertical position, and it should stay just like that. And now what we're going to do is pop open the actual processor. When you are handling this, you're going to want to be very careful not to touch any of the pins, and try not to touch the surface of it that rests on your heat sink. One thing that we're going to do before we pull it out is match up the triangles. You can see one here on the processor, and then there's one right there on the motherboard socket. When you place it in, you're going to want to go ahead and line those up. Like I said, you're going to want to be very careful, so hold it from the sides and be sure not to touch any other parts of the processor. This is a pin-based interface, so you're going to want to be really careful not to bend or damage any of those. So go ahead and gently place that into the CPU socket. I do apologize, my head kind of gets in the way here, but as long as you line up those triangles perfectly and just set it in, you will be perfectly fine. Once you have it in place, you're going to want to go ahead and grab that retention arm and push it down. There will be a little more tension than what might feel comfortable, but it is okay. Just go ahead and place that retention arm under the little latch where it was previously. So now we are going to install the cooler that it comes with. You can see here that there is already thermal paste installed, so at least with the stock cooler, you're not going to need to worry about that. Here we see the stationary hook, and on the other side, this one moves around a bit, and this is the part that we're actually going to use to lock down our CPU. And an important thing to note is you're going to want to have the AMD logo in the top right of the motherboard. So now we're going to want to hook in the non-clamping side of the cooler onto the pre-installed mounts of the motherboard. You just put it in from the other side like it would a normal hook. And then go ahead and go to the non-clamping side. This one's a little loose, so you're going to have to move it around a bit to get it to go around that mount. Slide it under there, make sure it's firmly in place. And then what you're going to want to do is apply even pressure to the actual cooler itself. It's going to feel like you're applying a lot of pressure, but just like with the retention arm, a little bit of pressure is okay. For this, you're just going to make sure the pressure is evenly distributed, and you're going to want to lock that clamp down so it's going to be a full 100-degree turn from left to right going up. And if you want to, you should be able to lift the entire motherboard with the cooler just to make sure everything is intact perfectly. You can see there that I did not lock it down all the way. I noticed this right once I stopped recording and pushed it down the rest of the way. So you're going to want to really push that lever down and make sure it's completely locked. Next, you're going to want to connect the fan header onto your motherboard. This is what will actually power the fan component. So go ahead and push that on in there. Next, I'm going to pop off these two little rubber protectors, and we're going to install the RGB component for this cooler. Now it does come with two different cables, and you're going to want to pay attention to what each of them does. In this video, I went ahead and installed both of them, and I didn't realize this until after the fact, but for me anyways, having both of them installed works perfectly fine. I'm using the Asus software, but essentially what you're going to want to do is use the USB connector in most instances, and then use the RGB connector in instances like myself, where I plan on using the software to control it that comes with the motherboard. If you want to, you can pause the video here and read this solution on the Tom's Hardware forum that I found. It is what I found to be the best explanation of these two cords. So getting onto it first, this is the USB cord. What you're going to want to do is go ahead and plug this into the little 3-pin port on the bottom of the cooler. Now it's very small, so make sure you line it up right and install it properly. And once you've done that, you could go ahead and get the other end and plug this into any available USB 2.0 header on your motherboard. So you can see I'm going to use the one right here, and I'm going to go ahead and just push that on in. And really, in most cases, this is all you're going to need to do. The RBG cord is, like I said, if you plan on using the software that comes with your motherboard. And speaking of, right there is the RGB connector that I'm going to be using on this motherboard, and this is the RBG cable. It's a 4-pin connector compared to the 3-pin on the USB, and it's the one that's a little bigger. So first I'm just going to plug this into my RGB connector on my motherboard here, and then go ahead to my fan and install the other side. And to install this, you just plug this into the 4-pin port on the actual fan, and then this mess we will just have to cable manage later. Now you can see here I opened up some video conversion software so I could put the CPU under full load to test how cool that the stock fan will be able to keep the CPU, and this is about after 15 minutes of load, and you can see it hovering around the mid to low 70s, 70 degrees Celsius, which for after 15 minutes under full load is not actually too bad. I'm rather impressed with the performance of this fan. You do see there that it did reach a max at 83 for a brief moment, but when it did get up into the 80s, the fan kicked into overdrive, and it was kinda loud, but as soon as it ramped up to full speed and cooled itself off, it got a lot quieter. Now if I open up the Ryzen Master software when I'm not performing a video render like this, I can see that it is actually hovering under or right around 40 degrees Celsius, and this is either idle or a very light amount of load. At the time of this little snippet, I do have a video editing software open in the background, and I'm actually recording the audio for this, and it seems to be doing very well. Alright, so I'm kind of adding this after the fact. This is the CPU there. You can see it's going in between green and yellow right now. This is one of my more favorite features of the color effects on this. Right here, I can set it to change colors based on the temperature of the CPU, which I find rather helpful because it's right next to me and I don't really have a monitor for that. So for example, if I start a process that I know is going to heat up the CPU, you can see it change from yellow, and it will probably eventually change to red because it will go above the threshold I set, and there it goes. So the threshold I set is 60 degrees Celsius, which isn't really too hot. It's not preferred, but these processors, as you saw in the previous little screen recording, go up to about 80, which still isn't too bad. Even at a max of around 80, it still rests right around 70 when under full load. So that is about it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video at all, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe for more videos like this. I'll have a lot more coming soon. Hit the bell to not miss anything. I hope you have a great day, and goodbye.